But we finally have the first England squad for the first India test. The big news is that Jamie Overton has received his first test call-up in 3 years. He's only played one test at Headingley against New Zealand in 2022. There's no decision made on what the top 7 will look like. Jacob Bethel is in, but there's no confirmation as to what his role will be, if there is a role for him at all in the first place. Matt Potts is out. Bryden Cass and Chris Wokes are in. They're fit again. Gus Atkinson misses out through injury. No Jofra Archer yet, but he may be in contention for the second test match. First up, Jamie Overton. Slight surprise that he's in the squad, but he's bowled really well from the short bits that we've seen him this season.
Yeah, and looked good. Looked to be bowling sort of quickly and straight in the first ODI against West Indies at Edgbaston before the finger injury occurred on that return catch. I'm guessing that he's there as a sort of as a backup to one of Tongue or Cass. In that, I guess the interesting thing with no Atkinson is that Cass will likely take the new ball, be the sort of direct replacement for Atkinson, albeit that he is a slightly sort of heavier, faster version. And that Wokes being back in means that Sam Cook is more than likely a kind of like a stand-in for the other new ball option in the side. So, you know, the attack looks as though it will be Wokes, Cass, Tongue, Stokes, Bashir in the starting lineup from what the squad looks like anyway, with Overton as backup, with Cook as backup for Wokes as the sort of the like for like new ball specialist in the 11. And so, you know, the only other question, as you rightly mentioned at the top there, is Bethel, does he get in? Or does he not, really? Or whether or not the batting lineup stays exactly the same as it was against Zimbabwe.
What do you think that they will do? Not what you think should happen. What do you think they will do around Bethel?
I honestly don't know. His spot, when the time comes, will more than likely be 3. And so therefore it means that Ollie Pope is sort of under the gun, rightly or wrongly. I mean, I don't subscribe to the view that he is he's massively under pressure and should be the guy to fall through the trap door. But it might turn out that if they make the decision that Bethel is the future, is the present, I should say, rather than the future, then that may well be the spot that he finds himself in, as he did reasonably successfully in New Zealand in his first go at it. So, but in terms of what I think they'll do, I have no idea. Honestly, I really don't. I mean, kind of inclined to go along with whatever decision they make is likely to be the right one. But generally speaking, when they make these big calls, they turn out to be the right ones in the long run. So we'll just wait and see. I mean, it's a little bit exciting. We don't know, and that's quite cool. But other than that, I guess really the key or the issue for England is kind of like the balance of the bowling attack in terms of the styles of bowling doesn't feel as though it's exactly as they would want it right now. But given, you know, the injury to Atkinson just recently, things have been thrown up in the air again. So they've ended up with Carson, Tongue. They've got 2 very inexperienced guys who kind of operate in a similar manner in the bowling attack, with Cass then now having to sort of be elevated to a new ball bowler, which he did well in Pakistan, where of course you're only really kind of getting through a handful of overs while the ball is brand spanking new. So you're basically an old ball middle overs bowler anyway. So the skill set required for Test match cricket, red ball in England, tend to be, you know, as Anderson and Broad did for all those years, it's being very, very accurate, top of off stump, and not leaving it. You know, that's where your success comes from in this country. It is slightly less heavy ball, intimidatory bowling, because the pitches don't tend to reward that here as much as they might do in other places.
What do you make of that tactical shift? There'll be a lot of people watching or listening to this who may have not followed England that closely over the last year or so. Everyone knows how England bat, But they have, since Anderson and Broad, have made quite a big tactical change in how they construct a bowling lineup. They basically have one classical English seamer. As you said, Sam Cook is in the squad but unlikely to play. That person is likely to be Chris Wokes. Then alongside that, they have two faster guys. Gus Atkinson has performed that role a lot over the last year. Biden Carter's done it over the winter. Josh Tongue did it against Zimbabwe. So it's 1 and 2, basically, which is obviously very different to what England did for 15 years with Broad and Anderson, and sometimes with Wokes as well. What do you make of that? Because that's actually quite a seismic change in how you go about putting together a bowling attack.
Well, it is, but I think it's as much about the personnel at your disposal as it is at anything else. If you go back a generation before then, England's sort of Fab Four with Ashley Giles tagged on the end was very similar to that. Matthew Hoggard was new ball, then you wouldn't see him unless a Kookaburra or a Duke started swinging it randomly at various times in the innings. And then you had, tall, bouncy and fast in Harmison. You had tall, very unpleasant ball nipping back in while Harmison could move it away in Flintoff. And then you had your reverse swing specialist in Simon Jones. So in terms of a theory, or in terms of a sort of a building of a seam bowling attack, it's not brand new. But what it is trying to make the most out of the resources that you have at your disposal. And I think identifying the fact that a cricket innings, say for example, it lasts for 120 overs, it's going to go through lots and lots of different phases. You need to have bowlers who are at their best when one of those phases comes along. There's no point in picking, we went through a long period of time where you pick sort of 4 very English swingy new ball type successful bowlers. Who would then all find themselves redundant after the ball is 30 overs old, and therefore that is not a proper bowling attack. And so what they're trying to do is to cover all bases, all scenarios over a ball's aging, and that includes obviously having the spinner in there as well.
And how well set up do you think they are for this series? We've seen quite a few flat pitches so far this summer, and this is a very inexperienced English attack for a marquee series. Chris Wokes aside, no one in this squad, from a bowling point of view, has more than 10 Test matches under their belt.
No, I mean, again, it's exciting because you don't know. And the one thing that England will hopefully back themselves to do is to score big runs. I mean, Bumrah is the wild card, isn't he? I mean, he is so damn good that he could sort of turn a series or win a series by himself. But I guess England will be thinking to themselves, well, we can make up for a lack of experience in the bowling attack if we pile on huge quantities of runs at a fast rate and put the opposition under pressure in that manner. I don't think it's a risky strategy. I think it's probably the best one that they've got. And so that'll be the challenge. Can England score enough runs? And in fact, it doesn't matter about the pace you score them, but the likelihood is it will be quickly because that's the way they play. In order to mask some of the deficiencies in experience and in some cases raw skill in the bowling attack.
And then finally on Matt Potts, he's someone who's been in a lot of England squads recently, not played a lot of games, but he's been involved pretty consistently over the last 3 years. He's not included when there are a lot of guys out injured. That's quite a big blow for him, and he's done pretty well for England every time he's taken the park.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it probably speaks to what they would require from him, given his particular set of skills. I sound like Liam Neeson. And I think that again they've looked at him and thought, well, he's not quite as good a new ball bowler as either Wokes or Cook, which is interesting. I mean, that's obviously their view, particularly as far as Cook is concerned, because of his complete and utter lack of experience at this level. And then they think that he doesn't quite fit into the role required for the older ball, more aggressive type bowlers, and so therefore he finds himself on the outside. Very, very tough on him. But England don't do sort of sentiment, barring maybe one or two people. But they don't do sentiment in terms of in terms of selection,
Hmm.
and it'll be, they'll pick the right guy for the job that they have identified they need them to do.
I think Potts suffers when Stokes is fit to bowl. If Stokes is able to bowl lots of overs, Potts' strength really is how durable he is. And if Stokes is bowling lots of overs, that's a 5-man attack, then you don't actually need someone who can bowl long spells that much. And with Stokes
No,
fit and
I
Stokes
mean,
bowling well,
Stokes is 3 players, isn't he? So he kind of he ticks a lot of boxes. And I don't know what the news is on Ben. I don't know whether a decision has been made that he's going to play in one of these upcoming Lions
he's
games.
not. He's not.
He's not. Okay. So I mean that's interesting in itself. I mean he and the medical staff obviously feel that he's durable enough and is fit enough to kind of get through volumes at test intensity without having to test it out elsewhere. And again, you have to trust them, and you have to trust him on that. I guess he's experienced enough and knows how important all of this stuff is enough not to take a risk on his own body, and take a risk on leaving the team sort of short. Which is ultimately what the biggest issue would be. And so he's given himself a pass. The medical staff have given himself a pass. You have to believe that he's there to play a full part. The one thing you would hope is that the that as captain, he reins himself in from the 13 over spell. That's probably something that he needs to put away now in the latter stages of his career, and allow other people to kind of pick up some of that slack, even if it's going well for him.
Still 2 weeks or so to go to that first test match. As you say, it'll be absolutely fascinating to see what they do in the top 7. I'm sure, as always, they'll announce a team 48 hours before the toss.
I mean, that's great, isn't it? I mean, it's good. It's good for everybody because everyone can get their angst and stuff out of the way, or their displeasure at the decision out of the way before the test match starts, and then focus in on the actual job rather than speculating what might happen. But also, that I like the confidence that it shows in the decision making, and whether people like the decisions that have been made or whether they don't. It means that the team they know what they're doing, they're happy with it, and they'll live and die by those calls.
Just finally, are there shades of Peterson in 2005 in this Bethel chat? In that there is this shiny new toy, who's we know is really exciting, but there's also a very settled team. Do you think that there's similarities in that?
No, I don't actually. I mean, there are quite a lot of differences in that. In that obviously Peterson came in 2005. I'd gone out of the team at the end of the South Africa series with a broken wrist, was injured, couldn't play anyway. Rob Key hadn't quite sort of satisfied whoever it was he needed to satisfy that he was the man to take up the number 3 post. And Graham Thorpe was 30. What would he have been? 35 maybe. And let's not forget that Peterson in South Africa had made 300s or something against baying crowd, with baying crowds against him in his former hometown, and had scored an enormous volume of runs. Bethel's thing is very different in that all of this is pretty much promise. He looks great, still hasn't scored a 100, doesn't have that sort of record behind him, and certainly isn't as sort of brash and self-confident as somebody like Peterson. And the other side to that is that people always forget about the Peterson issue was that when it came to Graham Thorpe not being in that Ashes team for 2005, it was actually Ollie Pope that came in and replaced him, not Kevin Peterson, because England made 2 changes in that settled team.
Ollie Pope,
not Ollie Pope, Ian Bell. Sorry, it's another redhead with a nice cover drive. It was Ian Bell. So Ian Bell batted at 3 and Peterson batted at 5. So they actually made two big changes that meant that Thorpe missed out in that series, and it was bye-bye Butcher and bye-bye Key. Key's getting his own back for that to this day, and I'm very happy with my lot.
Right, let's leave it there. Cheers for your time. Catch you next week.
Cheers, mate. Bye.